Pros in the know start with Lowe's, because at Lowe's, pros can save on the fixtures they need to get the job done. Building or renovating a bathroom? Now you can get bath faucets starting at $29.98. Then finish up with select toilets starting at $88. Plus, order what you need online and pick it up in store. See LowesForPros.com for details. So, Pro, now that you know, start with Lowe's. While supplies last. Selection varies by location. U.S. only.
Are you there? Sounds like the UFO is landing. Boop, 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 boop. Oh my God. That's cute. I think you got feedback.
Oh no.
You got to figure it out there, girl. I think you have two phones going. You have to shut one off.
There we go.
Oh. That was cool. That was cool. I like it. I like it. 2 thumbs up. 5 stars.
Oh, welcome to Earth, Janet. Okay, hello everybody. I did not do
Good landing.
Oh my God, because I was like, this is not happening. And lately, folks, it's been a while since I've been running the board, so I apologize. My bad. Oh, Lord.
That's good. We should record that special effect for the movie we're going to make someday.
I was looking at the buttons. Where is it? What is it? Oh, Lord. Okay, everybody. Hi, I'm so apologetic about that strange beginning, but I'm in Gulf Breeze, which is a mecca for UFO people that like to look for UFOs at night. We have a lot of beautiful things. I've had a couple over my house since I've moved here, just lights, and they don't blink, and they just sit there in space. And they were right next to each other, big white lights. But we're going to talk about alien contact experiences, and we may even start with our sightings and work into how we feel we've been contacted, because Janet Kira Lessin's here with me from Maui, Hawaii, and she and I have a long history. Long history. How we can help others with their long history, or if you have one, back to ancient times. We do ancient history and New Thought teachings and the Ascension Age, and I have AscensionPsychic.com, and she has AscensionCenter.net, and we also have Alien Contact Organization, and I have AlienContact.org. She has Alien Contact Organization spelled out with .com after it. I have the abbreviated version, AlienCon.org. So we're going to introduce ourselves. I'll put in this beginning here. Janet, you want to introduce yourself, or you want me to read this beginning? You go ahead and introduce yourself, because we're going to also be on your show, Aquarian Radio.
You can do your beginning if you want. We've been doing this for a long time. I'm Janet Kira Lessin, and I'm a Contact the Experiencer author. What do? We do websites and radio shows, and we did a conference, do conference speakers, and we just keep doing all this stuff. Life is very interesting, and I'm going to turn 65 February 6th, which is Bob Marley's birthday, and Ronald Reagan, which is a good friend of TJ's. She knew him when he was alive. What's that?
And my grandmother that died many years ago. Her name was Sarah Bolton. Yeah, she was my grandmother, and I loved her. I wouldn't be the person I am today without her. So I think that's sort of cool that you were born on my grandmother's birthday too. She was the sweetest person I ever knew. Nice lady.
Yeah. Nice lady. Well, that's good. So you got to have a nice relationship with your grandmother. Yeah. I only had one grandmother. My other grandmother died. The story was that she had this cancer, the size of a football in her stomach, and it was inoperable, and she was dying. My mother was pregnant with me, and my mother couldn't tell her. I don't know why she couldn't tell her mother she was pregnant with me. Maybe her mother didn't want her to have a third child, but I don't know. Anyway, she never got to tell Grandma. So when I was born, Grandma would come and stand at the foot of my bed. and I would see this woman standing at the foot of my bed. At first, I didn't know what was that. Is that real or not? And then finally, I saw a picture of Grandma. And I said, oh, that's the lady that stands at my foot of my bed and watches over me. So she must have been my guardian and really curious about me and taking care of me. And then one day my mother was holding me, and she looked at me and she said, I think you're the reincarnation of my mother. But I remember looking at her, nah, I'm not your mother. I'm not your, I just got to know on that. But I didn't express it. I just let her have her fantasy. I know she loved her mother very, very much. Oh, and then that mother used to come into the house, and I would come up from behind my mother, and she's talking to somebody, She's in her bedroom or in the other room, I come up behind her, and I would come very quietly, and I'd watch my mother talking to this lady over in the corner, on the other side of her. And she's having this full-on conversation. This is in broad daylight. And I'd go, wow. She's able to bring her mother through and have a real conversation with her. So, anyway, that's how I started. That's one of my beginning stories. What about you, TJ? Do you have any ghosts?
My grandmother had the gift. Now, not the one I was talking about, Sarah Esther Richmond, that I was my mother's mother, but Sarah Elizabeth. Both my grandmothers were Sarahs. Interesting. But wow. Sarah Elizabeth Thurmond, Thurmond, she, my mother would talk about her talking to people, but I would go up to her and ask her because she would talk to people, and whether it was day or night, sometimes.
Right.
And she was just as normal as you or me, but she could, if she thought we were watching TV or something, she would go over and somebody would be standing at the window in her mind anyway, and she would talk to them. One day I walked up to her and said, Grandma, who are you talking to? And she told me the name and introduced me, and I was like, hi, how are you? And of course, I don't think I saw anybody, but I felt a little odd, but then I said, okay, well, I'm going to go sit back down because she did it quite often. But, I remember being probably 5 or 7 watching her and talking to her, but she did that her whole life until she died. So, but my father and mother just didn't mention it much, and we never talked about it. So
that's funny. That's funny.
It is funny.
So your grandmother was open about talking, And your relative, your mother, everybody knew that she did that, but you just didn't talk about it. Didn't shame her, didn't make her wrong or bad. Now, my mother felt embarrassed, ashamed that if you said, and I did make that mistake, Mom, who were you talking to? I saw this lady in the room with you, right? You know? And, she would get so angry. But she probably got shamed for being a psychic and able to talk to her mother. Probably somebody shamed her. But my brother, I thought, well, maybe I'm nuts, because you always had that when you have something paranormal and then years go by and you go, what, is that real? Is that really real? Nobody else having these experiences, right? Because nobody's talking about it. But then finally I talked to my brother, and I thought I was having he said, oh, no, the piano would play by itself. I saw Mom talking to her mother all the time, so I think my mother was even more open. Well, my brother's 7 years older than me, so she was even more open about that. But by the time I came along, there was a lot of shaming about her psychic abilities, so she got really embarrassed when she would get busted talking to her mom. So I never shamed her about it. I just go, okay, she's talking to her mom. Fascinating. Because I could somehow she was bringing.
If we talked to her,
what's that?
She quit a couple of times. If we interrupted her, she'd just put her chair back and move it back to the table and walk away with her head up, just like she would just. If we bugged her about it, I went up to her, but I just happen to remember that one time. I really did want to. I don't know for that one time, but I'm just saying that a couple of times if me or the other kids would say, Grandma, she would just quit and put her chair back, at the table and go about her business and just quit, in other words. She wouldn't say a word. She'd just quit. She did not like she'd been caught or anything, or she'd say, I have to go or something. But she'd dismiss this conversation and just, she didn't want to bother the children with it. She usually did it when we thought we were preoccupied. But it seemed to be if we came up that she would quit. You know what I mean? So she was aware of, she didn't like us interrupting her. So, but I wouldn't say that she got mad. She just quit.
She quit. She was annoyed.
Yours would have a anger issue about it, quitting. Your mother.
I think she was embarrassed, and then later with me, she would have I don't know what she was feeling, but it was very uncomfortable to talk to her about it. Like shame, embarrassment. Yeah, and I would never push it, but I guess if I would have pushed it, she would have gone into anger. But my mother was an angry person. She was a very frightened and angry person. And so she probably was, and I don't know. She was probably undiagnosed schizophrenic, or this whole thing of being able to see ghosts and living in a world where that wasn't acceptable. Her religion was very much against anything. There was a biblical thing she would quote me. There's something in the Bible, if you're talking to spirits or something, it was the devil, it was satanic. So she was very superstitious like that. She was into exactly what the Bible said about the negativity and Satanism, and I don't know. She was Presbyterian. I thought that was pretty middle of the road. What's that?
Let's start with how our family seemed to have gifts. My mother could tell, was very concerned in her 30s because she could tell when she'd get a premonition. She was like a precog when airplanes would fall. I don't know why, and they would. Yeah, so our tornadoes were coming before anybody knew it or it was on the news, and she knew something was coming, and she called it a cyclone or tornado in Louisiana. But I remember that. And then, you'd go and she'd turn on the TV, start listening for news. But she could predict weather or airplane crashes, and even in Houston when we moved there. But she did not believe in UFOs. She didn't believe in alien contact. She said, now, Jan, I don't believe in that. She always called me Jan my entire life. And Jeanette, because she was Theresa and I was Jan. And
right.
if she was mad at me, she'd call me Theresa Janet, and I knew I was in trouble. But she named me Janet, Janette. Yours is Janet, Janet. But my dad would always call me Theresa Janet, and Mother said Janet was his girlfriend, one of his girlfriends, because he said, she said, well, what do you want to name her? Because she named me after her, Teresa, or somebody did, her mother. And he said, well, he told me, I said, how did I get that name? He says, well, we couldn't think of any names, and she asked me, and that's the name I came up with. So it wasn't like a big thing back then, I guess, to go through baby books like it is today.
Right.
Back when we were born. But I was number 1, and you were what, number 3 when you were born?
I was the third of 3, and you were the first of how many?
6, and then Mother remarried, and had 1 child. I have a half sister, Letitia Thomas Sandejas, out of Houston. Yeah, she's Catholic. But we were brought up Baptist, strict Baptist, Southern.
And we were brought up Presbyterian. So let me ask you something. I think, I'll just make a statement first. I think because that we had these tendencies in our families, we came in with these abilities, a lot of these, telepathic and psychic abilities, right? That's why the government programs, the government people started to look at us and our families, because we had these natural abilities, and somehow they knew about it. And you had an episode where they came. What's that?
Did you ever have any government people? Did you ever have any government people around you, or not until you were in college or Pennsylvania? Do you remember?
I met a fellow who said he was a royalty. He was he contacted me.
As an adult, though.
He contacted me as an adult, right? But what he said, he said that they were tracking me coming in, and then I was led to go rent Taken, because I don't have television. I haven't had television since I moved to this house in 1997, right? So I get these things that say, like guidance, and it says, go rent this and that. So back then, remember we had Blockbuster, right? So I went down to Blockbuster and I rented Taken, right? And I would rent one and take it back and get the next one, So I saw, I think it was 20 hours of Taken by Steven Spielberg, and I believe it was made somewhere around the year 2000. And then I was just really astonished when, what was the little girl's name?
Allie
Clark, when they said, we tracked you coming in. Now, I don't think I heard, I think I heard that like a year. I can't remember exactly how that was, but it was shocking when I heard that from this fellow. And then he said that they had a room dedicated to me in the Naval Academy over on the East Coast. I guess it's in Academy. I should Google this, yeah. But then years later, you told me that you were tracked coming in, but I think there's certain people that they track coming in. Anyway, I think what Spielberg was reporting something that actually happens, yeah.
Yeah, he had a man write the story for him, but I think the research was done, and a lot of people related to that, but I totally related to it because of my story. So when I did, in 2016, a paranormal panel moderator, and people were allowed to ask me questions, but some of the kids said I was the girl because they asked questions and said, you're Allie and Taken. So I was like, yeah, I've been told that. I had been told that a lot. So a lady had sent me the book Taken from Roswell, New Mexico, because she believed that too, and said, you've really got to read that. So people started sending me that book. I got 2 or 3 copies. People would mail it to me because by the time, when did it come out? Was it?
I'll go look at it right now. Yeah.
2002, but when did the book I know Dakota Fanning played her, and she was a really young girl. But my family lived in Lubbock. My sister, the Lubbock Lights, and her boys, and they found out who they were in internet by reading what I'd put about them in Lubbock and some of my stories. So I thought that was really
strange. Novel. I didn't even know there was a novel on it. I thought it was just the movie. Okay, so it was done in October 29th, 2002. It's only $6.99. I'm going to add that to my cart. Take a look at it.
All right.
Yeah, here we go. I know I'm not going to buy it right now, but I always add things to my. It's like a little fantasy.
Mine
like,
all in
well, they get the money.
Yeah.
What's that?
Mine are all in Kentucky. My whole library is gone. I had the first book that Stanton Friedman read, and then the VA gave me a lot of books when I was being guided through the VA with Tom. They gave us a bunch of books because they wanted me to do the research. They left all these books out. I remember with Tom, they were hoping I'd write a history of all this, the UFO business, because I was writing back then, 2007. He died in 2015. But the last 3 or 4 years of his life, we'd go to the VA in Evansville, Indiana, and they had a bunch of books, Ruth Montgomery books, some of the books of the old UFO people all out, and they allowed us to take them. It was really a strange situation. There were books all the way up, all the way down, and said, yeah, we could take them. Please take them. I was never seen that before. We'd been going there for, 2 or 3 years, and all of a sudden, all these books were there. So I took some home, but they're all with Deborah Dockery now in my old house, and she said she threw them all away, all my books, and I had some priceless copies. Oh my God! But she didn't, and she's an author, but she didn't care to keep all the books. So probably lost my baby book and everything. But you can't take it with you. So here I am now, and here you are. We're doing a radio show about our alien experiences. So I guess we ought to talk about those. So we're starting with the taking, and how Janet and I both related to that story. It affected us. When you were talking about the part where they had the lights tracking, and then the little girl went on the front porch and told all of the people there to come, and she helped them get their little implants out of their noses. So you have all people had little things in your nose. I broke my nose. So,
well, how do you know if you do or don't? But mine, I remember getting. I was, I just started kindergarten, and I was so tuned to my mother. So my mother would get upset, right? She was always getting upset. So she got upset because I was going to miss school because I couldn't stop sneezing. When I got the implant, I woke up and it was just, liquid was just pouring out of my nose because my body was trying to get this thing up my nose out, right? And I was just sneezing. I could not stop sneezing. And she said, oh, I guess you can't go to school. And I'm like, well, I just can't stop sneezing. And I was just nonstop. Now, my mother never would take me to the doctor because we were poor. She said, I can't afford to take you to the doctor. Oh, no. So it was always like, I didn't like to be sick because she would get upset. So anyway, we rode that, but I'll never forget it because it was so traumatic on so many levels. Not only was I having a physical reaction from getting an implant, but, it was causing a major upset in my family. So anyway, you don't remember getting any kind of things?
I broke my nose. I had to wear a baseball catcher's mask on my nose. It was very traumatic. I couldn't breathe out of my nose.
How did you break your nose?
Got hit with a baseball. I always played softball teams, but this was out summer in the back of a girl's house, and we loved to play softball. And it wasn't this hard. It was the big, fat softball. You know how girls used them, but they were still hard.
Mm-hmm.
We used the professionals with the leather on them. But I was catching it, so I busted it. I remember I've never seen so much blood in my life. Outside a big pool, and then inside, they took me in and set me on the bathroom, what do they call that, the throne. I sat with it down and just bled everywhere. But I broke it and then had to go get it fixed. And then later on, my sister 2 years later did the same thing, playing softball in the same backyard, and did it for herself. But it was terrible breaking my nose. I couldn't breathe. I broke my face in 5 places. So it was pretty traumatic.
God.
You and I both, I still smell good. I can't, I never could smell again properly. I can, if I get up to a rose or something, but while people can smell things, it's been very hard on me. People, whatever that is, it was sort of broken. So can you smell good?
Yeah.
Or just your palate?
I've never been able to smell either. And so I just go, people who are talking about smells, I go, nope, I was born without a sense of smell. But I think it had something to do with the implant I got when I was in kindergarten. And I remember after that, I was always so embarrassed because people would say, oh, smell the pretty. But, thinking back, it was before that. There was something going on before that, but I could never smell.
No missing time, no memories? No abduction?
Who knows? I don't really have missing time. I just have things that I clearly remember. So the other thing, the implant I remember getting was when they put one behind my right ear. And I remember I was outside. I like to go outside and play. I'm a kind of a loner because there was nobody my age, right? My brother and sister were older, and they would be off in school or playing with their friends. And I was kind of by myself with my mom. And my mom didn't really, my mother was bored with being a mother by the time I came along, She was older, and I think she just wanted to do something else. So I would entertain myself, and so I would go out into the yard, and I liked singing. I would go out in the yard and just sing. And they were just songs I made up. I call them nonsense songs. I'm singing a nonsense song, and then all of a sudden, now knowing what I know, it was probably some kind of drone, but it was a insect-sized drone. But it was very insistent on coming up to me and piecing it together with what Bud Hopkins said in his books. It probably, paralyzed me, knocked me out, and then they took me up on the ship, and then they put in the implant behind my ear, and then they returned to me. And so when I came into the house, I would say, Mommy, a bee stung me, but it wasn't a bee. And then my mother called my dad, and he came home from work, and they took me over to the doctor, and the doctor didn't know what it was, and he's there. Yeah, something definitely is going on. Oh, it's probably just a cyst, and it'll go away. Because they didn't know what the heck. That was 1958, right? They didn't know what to do with stuff like that. They had no concept. So, and it didn't. It went down. It was very swollen, very painful, and it went down. So that was in 1958, and I remembered that. But then years later, I'm reading Bud Hopkins' book, and he said that they tend to put the implants in the nose, and it was in the right nostril. Mine was in the right nostril, and they put them behind the right ear, and I'm going, wow, I got that one. And then when I was a teenager, they said they like to take out a sample from the right tibia, which is the front of the leg towards the bottom there. And lo and behold, that was another time I got this. It was like a scoop mark, but it was into the bone. The bone, you could actually feel an indentation of the bone. And I got married at 16, so every time my husband would, bump into my leg, I would shout out in pain, and that lasted for 2 to 3 years before that indentation grew over. So that's 3 things that I recall. But then I've always known that they've been taking me, just to use that term, because I used to run, like jump and run, getting in and out of my bed at night when I had to go pee. It was like irrational, but once I found out what was going on, when I read about Betty and Barney Hill and saw the movie, oh, no wonder I was afraid to get out of the bed. I was afraid of the little people grabbing my feet and grabbing me and carrying me off. So, anyway, did you have anything like that? Irrational.
I had, remember, we've had this conversation before, folks, over the years, but where I would start my story if we were making our own taken book, which I guess we need to, and we can put, by the time phrase, but remember my next sister had arrived, Brenda, on South 7th Street, and I was down there's the Baldwins right next to me and the Doziers on the other side. And my grandmother lived on 2nd, we lived in 7th in Monroe. It was all Air Force barracks before where my grandmother lived on 2nd, but this was a new area, and Mother had gotten some money from her father dying, and she put her money into and built this house. I guess she paid cash for it. But it was just a regular, back in the 50s, it was like a little 3-bedroom. I think it was a 2-bedroom, 1 bath, but the living room and a swinging door into the kitchen in the back, and then a nice little, had a swing set in the background. But when my mother was taking care of my sister, I went down, and I remember seeing myself as a child, sleeping. So I must have been 4 or 5, because Brenda's your age, I think. She's 2 years younger in October. And I was born December 26, 51. And I remember seeing myself fall asleep, but I was overhead. And I don't know, I remember looking down. I was on a ship with I call them my ET family, and looked down and saw myself, and they explained it to me. And I was like, how can I be down there and I'm up here? And they said I had to go back. So I didn't know if I was a walk-in, and I'd been asked that by Ruth Montgomery. She said I was from somewhere way out, like a cosmos being way, way out or something. But I believe in Ruth Montgomery. That's how I met J. Allen Hynek. But anyway, I was laying there, and I remember being overhead, and they told me about them. So when about 56, this was probably 55, 56, because by the time Sputnik flew over, I knew all about being in space, and my dad was pointing, and I was trying to say, yeah, and, they were like, what? So they didn't understand. They thought I was a really different child because I spoke very eloquently, and I had an excellent memory. They could ask me anything about what was coming on TV. We only had Channel 8 and Channel 10 from El Dorado, Arkansas, but I could tell them I was coming on things like that at a very early age. But I'll always remember looking and seeing myself, and my mother got scared because I was asleep. I don't know. They must have kept me there a long time because the sun was starting to come down. I remember having to go back. They stayed right overhead like in a cloud. And I don't remember going anywhere. But I remember looking down and having to go back down and not wanting to. And then my mother had called my grandmother, my Aunt Bella, and Uncle Rufus to come look for me. And that's how I came out, was telling that story in 2007 on the UFO Digest. I was so scared, and anytime I'd talk about it, I would get, and I still to this day recently, when we had Jan Harzen on Thursday night, I was shaking, literally couldn't sleep the night before. And I was shaking because something about Jan Harzen makes it real for me. I don't know what it is, MUFON or just the fact that he runs MUFON. But I started shaking again, and it was like having to come back from space and be on the planet. But it was like an anxiety attack or something. But I tried to tell my mother. Anyway, I remember going back down, and then my grandmother and I tried to tell her. I pointed up, I was up there, and she said, "Well, where have you been?" I said, "Your mother's worried about you, and I'm so glad we found you and all that, and you're okay and everything." But then she'd turn around, because she was always real sweet to me. But she was holding my hand and taking me back across. There was little lots. They weren't acreage. They were like lots, probably half-acre lots or so. But anyway, she took me back. But she said, "Don't tell your mother anything about this," because I was up there, and I was, a little kid explaining it to her. She's like, "It doesn't make any sense. You're in the cloudy. She's just like, but she didn't believe me. So that was my first experience. But then when I died, remember in the second grade, I had the orbs. People come pick me up. So that was with hepatitis. So that was my second. Now these people were up over my bed. Now that was the second grade. So I must have been visited 4 or 5, and then in the second grade again at 7 or 8, 50. So okay, so there's Sputnik. So I remember telling my dad about, oh yeah, that's normal. So in my world, child, these beings were real, and I know that they trained me in my room. I have memories of working with a person that my parents didn't see. Remember when I told you about the person and Mother came and said, well, bring Leo, and she said, I wanted to go in the back seat, and she said she opened the door, and I knew she couldn't see him. She left him on the porch. He stayed on the porch. He wouldn't come with us.
Right.
I don't know why he couldn't leave the room.
Right, your invisible friend.
Yeah, my invisible friend. Wasn't a tall 6 foot.
Don't forget my invisible friend. My husband's making a smoothie. My apologies. I'm sorry. He came back early, so well. So Leo, what did Leo look like?
I don't remember. He was small and he was a boy, and he was my best friend, and he taught me things. And I remember he could teach me ESP and how to build with my blocks. And I was learning levitation. I was learning things, how to do numbers and how to do things as a child. So they were extracurricular tools to use my mind. But I do remember that because nobody else could do it, and I could know things. So he was training me because, remember, I'd already been up on a ship. So, and I wanted to know things.
Right.
I didn't want to be alone. So Mother, I was the only child, and Mother was the typical Donna Reed kind of mother with the dresses and the big slips and the hair fixed in a bob. She was quite very happy. She had a home ec in Washita High School, and she was very well trained and looked forward to being a mother. Let's see, her mother had her at 23, but she had me at 20. So she was about the 1950s and giving the kids, the perfect life after the World War II, because she was raised real poor during when her Jewish grandpa listened to them killing his relatives in Poland during Hitler time, on the radio in Clark's, Louisiana, because he worked and ran the sawmill there. So she had bad memories of war. So she wanted, when I came along in 1951, actually I grew up with the 52 babies because that was December 26, 1951. So it's just like I just turned 67. But I went to school, with all the kids the next year. So, but let's see. Now I started early. I started at 5 because I started 5 to 6. The reason was I remember over and over asking why I had to go to school. I wanted to go to school really bad. Mother had to go talk to them, and they said it was up to her and me because my birthday was before the end of the year. So she got me in with everybody a year older than me. So I had to adjust. I was always the youngest kid, being born December 26th. So I must have been with everybody that was born in 50. Everybody was like 6 months older, 11 months older or something. So anyway, but I was 5 in the 5 to 6 in the first, and then 6 to 7 in the second, and 7 to 8 in the third, 8 to 9 in the fourth. And that's when I went to Roswell, New Mexico, and White Sands, New Mexico. And I was already tall, but I had already died with hepatitis. So my first out-of-body near-death experience in the second grade. So we got to get that in because,
let's slow this down a little bit. We're going too fast. We're going down time, so we're 8 years old. Let's go back a little bit, get a little bit more from when we were younger. So how old were you when you had that invisible friend?
Before, from the time I could, probably 2 till, I remember him entertaining me before Brenda ever came. So he was my friend until I went on the ship. And I don't remember him after I went on the ship. Isn't that interesting?
Okay.
I never thought about
So give us a time frame. So you went on the ship at what age?
That would be, Brenda was 2. I think it's 2.5 years. I think I'm 2.5 years. So she was born in October 13th or October 21st. She was born October 54, I think, because 2 and 3.
Yeah, I was born February 54. So she's...
I think she was born October 54 or 55. Anyway, I had her sister, and then 11 months later I had a brother. So they were 55, 56, maybe 54 and 55, or 55 and 56. But anyway, she was in diapers and a baby when I did this. And to me, it seemed like it wasn't cold and it wasn't hot. It seems like to me it was spring, like maybe May. So I don't know. I do know that I remember the house.
We don't really know years. So that was... No. So when you went to White Sands, let's go to so let me see. So we're in 50
second grade,
and that was what year? Second grade would have been.
Let's see, 5 to 6. I started at Plum Street Elementary, and then we moved. No, Mother, they were going to build another new house because she had me and my sister and my brother. So second grade, I was going to Mitchell in West Monroe and stayed with my aunt. Mother was working at Owen Matheson, and so was my dad in West Monroe at the paper mill. My grandmother was the PBX operator for Mr. Brown, and then Mr. Brown sold the paper mill to Owen Matheson, and they had a box company, and they had the paper. My dad would run the machines in the big, gigantic building for paper mill. So... see, at Mitchell second, so 5 and 6 school first, Mitchell Elementary 6 to 7. Then I went to Ransom Elementary 3rd to 4th. With principal was Walters, and Miss Townsend was the library, and Miss Bridges was my 3rd grade teacher. So 3rd grade, and then in the summer of the 3rd, after I had hepatitis at Mitchell in the 2nd. And they had to bring me my homework. That's when I died and saw the angels in my room, or ETs, whatever you want to call them. And they told me I'd be okay. So that's when the Catholic Church was like, whoa, she's seeing angels. That was in the 2nd grade. So after I got better, they told me I'd get better in 11 months. That's when I decided to go to Roswell, because I was already trained with extracurricular activities by my invisible friend. Then I've been on a spacecraft. Then I died and came out of my body. I had my first out-of-body experience and saw angels in the 2nd grade. By the 3rd grade, I had to get better that year. So the next summer, I could get my grandmother and my aunt and uncle, Aunt Bella and Uncle Rufus, to take me to White Sands, Mexico, to see my family again, my ET family.
Your ET family. Now, how did that come about? And then we should go back and I'll tell about when I was on board ship and a couple of things here. But how did that come about? So you said, I want to go to White Sands, right? You just said,
I told them.
It was all because of you.
They didn't understand. There was a lot of adult questioning, but because I'd been so sick and Mother had a baby and we moved out to the 115 Diane Street. There was a red brick home. It was a real pretty home. And they started building other houses in the Haynes subdivision. It used to be New Natchitoches subdivision, but Mr. E.B. Haynes built that subdivision. And the water company Nichols lived there, Troy Nichols, Tommy Nichols, and Johnny Nichols' daddy. And they all went to school with me. And I remember my teacher later on hurting my feelings because, I had little brothers and sisters, but she didn't think, Mother always dressed me with really nice clothes, but she didn't think I lived in the same neighborhood with them. So she thought, I don't know, she just acted like I was poor and they weren't. And I was like, Mother, I've dressed nice. Mother made most of my clothes. I don't know. But anyway, she just feelings. But anyway, so that was when we went. I told my grandmother, and my grandmother told my aunt and uncle. And my uncle had an uncle out there that lived on the Indian reservation. And they decided they'd take me. And I don't know. I just said I willed it to happen. But I knew I had to go there. But I don't understand how a person, I observe it from my inner self, but and I observe as an investigator, growing up as the trade of being an investigator, but I really find it odd in my story that the truth is stranger than fiction, because how did a child living in Louisiana will her family to take her to White Sands, New Mexico? And then I find out my uncle works at Alamogordo.
Well, let's look at that. Okay, that's a good question. So let's not go past that too quick. What I'm finding is a lot of these people are in these different programs. So your uncle or your dad or somebody was working at White Sands. Let's get that piece of the puzzle. Was it your uncle that worked there?
I had died. Remember, it was hepatitis. I lost all the blood, and they brought a machine up from New Orleans to Monroe at St. Francis Hospital to clean the blood. They didn't know what else to do because I'd turned yellow and was dying, and their last-ditch effort was, some doctor said, well, we could try this new machine, 57, 58 at time, to clean her blood. So they brought one up, but when they took my blood out of me and cleaned it, it made me pass. That's when I saw the angels. But
great.
Where I'm going with this is I had to learn to walk and talk again. So I started knowing the golden angels. So they're like on the people. They were orbs, but they were golden orb people. I call them my mother would make us sit down and watch Wizard of Oz every year.
And the same thing. We had Wizard of Oz. So that might be, same thing. We had to watch. Well, we didn't have to, but it was like
we did
they insisted. Every year.
My mother insisted that we sit down every year, Campbell's soup, snowing or not outside, and watch Wizard of Oz with her. And so we did that. And it's a family tradition. And my mother and me and my sister. And then, so I thought this was normal too. Remember, I'd already seen Sputnik. I'd already seen my ET family. And then I'd seen Sputnik come over, so I thought that was normal. Then, after I kept to learn to walk and talk and seen angels overhead, I'm just assuming this is life. So then these orb people come in bubbles, and I was passing out because I couldn't walk and talk good, and I couldn't walk, and they would have to carry me to outside and put me in a red hammock so I could get air. The doctor decided to get fresh air was good for me, but I couldn't walk yet. I was that weak, and so they'd have to literally carry me. And it was I died, literally died and came back. So they carried me.
Right.
But towards the last few months of getting outside through my spring to summer, I was getting brave and wanted to walk in to use the bathroom. And I remember with the red brick house that I fainted. And these beings, I woke up with them picking me up and standing me up. And nobody else was around but the gold orb people. And then their bubbles just disappear. So to me, they're real. Orb people are real.
Hey, the orb people are picking me up. What's wrong with you? Don't see the orb people?
Don't you? But nobody would be around when they would appear. So,
right.
But how I got to, from there is when I decided, and I don't know if they inspired me to go or how, I don't know why I wanted to go. I just knew I had to go. I had to go. There was no stopping me. If I had to hitch a ride on a train or a bus or I don't know. But I was only third or fourth grade.
They give us experiencers like this call, just like on Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Everybody had to go to that Devil's Mountain, right? And they don't know why they have to go there. And it's not clear until they get there and something happens. So yours, something happened, which we'll get to in a minute, was. And so anyway, but what was interesting is that yours wasn't, because you were a child, you had to get some adults to take you there.
Right.
For some reason, they all complied. But I thought you said that somebody worked at White Sands.
Yeah, my Uncle Rufus, Aunt Bella. Now, my grandmother never drove a car because when she fell off a running board on an old Model T or something with other kids, and I saw the picture And then it changed her, and she would never drive a car. She was scared of cars. So her entire life she spent never driving a car. Now her grandma drove the horse. Well, they had an old mule and a cart, drove from Clark's to Monroe. I don't know if it's 16 or 30 miles. It was a long thing, but her 12 kids and the mule and all their furniture in the wagon with a mule. And so Grandma didn't drive, and then my next generation didn't drive. So my mama was the first woman to drive a car. But Uncle Rufus and Aunt Bella, Uncle Rufus did. Aunt Bella didn't drive. So there was something about that generation in my family that didn't drive. But Uncle Rufus had a car, and he was a plumber. And Aunt Bella worked at the Firestones in West Monroe in bookkeeping. But they had enough money to take me. He was a plumber, and she worked at Firestones, and my grandma worked at the paper mill. So my grandma was very obliging to me because she had to go to work when my mama was a little girl and her husband died. So he got married to somebody else in between there, but that's a long, different story. But anyway, so the point was that nobody drove, but Uncle Rufus took me. And so they went down Route 66 over to New Mexico. And his uncle lived on a reservation, so we stayed on the reservation. I burned up my caught Indian fire. But my other uncle, there was another uncle that worked at Los Alamos. Now I find that odd. But I've met them, so I know they did. And then later on I have more uncles that were in NASA. But go ahead.
Well, yeah, I wanted to get that point in here while we're at this part of the story, because what I'm finding by interviewing all these experiencers that had family in the government programs, we know White Sands was definitely part of the secret military secret programs, is that they often involve their children, and they have these magical children that are psychic and everything. But the children are often enhanced. So what happens is, like, for example, my friend Dan Cooper, is he and his brother, their sperm and egg and that whole admixture that became the fetus, which became them, it was genetically manipulated outside of the womb. And then it was inserted, they were inserted into their mother. And then she gave birth. She bore them and grew them in her womb and gave birth. Same with his younger brother. But they were selected because they had some basic criteria that they needed to create these magical people that are psychic and end up being part of the secret programs. I'll just call them the secret programs. So that's like you had abilities. You were like Allie. You were like Allie Clark and Taken. And so that's why they were so agreeable to take you to White Sands, because that's part of your awakening. When will she remember who she is? Well, there's TJ, 8 years old, saying, take me to White Sands. And they're going, okay, she's waking up. And on some level, they must have known you were going to be reunited with your star family.
Well, they had to take me to Carlsbad, and I had to go down into the cave. It was very important that I went to Carlsbad Caverns, and I insisted on seeing the bats fly out of the cave. And going down, it was like a 6-mile walk or some outrageous amount. I don't know, but we'll have to look it up. It's called Carlsbad Caverns. So part of the trip, it was like a 2-week trip. Back in the day, they'd take off 2 weeks or something, 2-week vacation, go Route 66. I'm sure it took every minute of it over there. But I remember staying on the Indian reservation and getting Indian fire and having Indians pray over me in a circle. And I saw a movie once with Christopher Walken, I think. He's one of my favorite. I think he went to a teepee and there was a circle. But the Indians knew and prayed over me and knew I was an E.T. child and told me. But that's why I got Indian child. Yeah, I was an E.T. child, star child or sky person or something. But they sort of informed me, but I still didn't understand, except I just accepted. But, oh, yeah, I'd point up and like, oh, yeah, yeah. So they knew I was coming. So I don't know how they know, but it was like, the woman that came in. And there was a powerful medicine woman that healed my Indian fire. I still got a scar on my ankle, my left ankle to this day. But it was intentional. So it's like a scoop mark, actually.
Uh-huh.
But it was something to do with who I was and them and being marked and them healing me so they could see me. I had to get Indian fire so I could get on the Indian reservation and be healed. So they knew I was coming. It's one of those spooky things. I'm not sure how this goes together. All I know is what I experienced. And then it's just part of the sacred spiritual journey. So anyway, so they were living there. I went over to the Indian lady and went in the teepee, and they had rocks in a circle and some kind of sand scripture thing, and put me in there and did a hot sweat lodge thing, and then I got healed of Indian fire, and which is like impetigo basically, right? From hot, maybe having a sweet bite. But remember, I'd been sick with a bad blood disease, hepatitis, the year before, right? They almost didn't let me go.
So you had impetigo. You had impetigo when you were young. I caught it too.
That's
it
odd.
Might have been something that they needed to add, but I caught it too. It was really bad, and my mother was dealing with it. And anyway, and I was crying because it was painful. But I caught this impetigo. Yeah.
Yeah, it was worse than chickenpox.
Yeah, it was worse than my mother was.
Infection in your bloodstream from, or either, I don't know, we'll have to look it up, I forgot. But I know that it was, they said it was because I got dirt on me because, I was a kid and I played outside, but they made me take a bath every night, so they were very clean people. Back in the 50s, everybody took a bath every night, rain or shine. They never let you
There you go.
You had to be about 7. So it wasn't about the dirt. But anyway, so that was part of it. But they held me, and then I got to go to White Sands with them over to the White Sand Dunes. That's where I saw the UFO. The one that's like a 30 by 30 or 40. But Tom always said 30 by 30, so that's what I say, in or out, because they're bigger than that. But when but I got to see it and go and see a man, just like on Allie Clark and Taken, which shocked the shit out of me. But yeah, the guy was standing there, and I remember going on board, and we were up on a sand dune. My Aunt Rufus, my Uncle Rufus, and Aunt Bella, and my grandma was with. I call her Sisty because my girlfriend had a sister, a bigger sister, and I didn't, so I asked her if I could call her sister. So I'd say Sisty, so that's where that came from. But anyway, they were all down at a picnic table, and they let us go run up the White Sand Dunes. So I had a 13-year-old girl and a 10-year-old boy. Anyway, he was like a year or two older than me, and then she was like 12 or 13. But we were up on the sand dunes, had played all day, 2 or 3 hours, to noon to 4 or something. But this ship came over and they saw it. They were way on the top of a crest, like a point of sand, like you see sand dunes, but they were white. And we were up on top, and so funny, I'm trying to do it with my hands so that you can't see it. And then I remember seeing it, and then I looked at them, and they went to sleep. I was, hey, don't you want to go see this, And they were asleep, but somebody was talking to me like in my head, and I went down the other side of the sand dune down to where it landed. It went down on the other side from the family, the relatives, and parked down on the flat part. There's a sand dune and a flat part, and then there's maybe another sand dune behind it. But it came down in the middle of them, so I was able to go in there. And I don't know how long I was in there, but I remembered the guy, and people said, well, what'd you see? And I remember doing a show for Kevin Smith, but he died after I did that show with him on radio. Yeah, Kevin Smith did that. He was the one. This is another part of the story that Kevin Smith was. It comes later on, but as an adult, way later when I'm writing for 2007. But he was a sheriff in Monroe, Louisiana, and told me that he had known me and watched me my whole life. And he wasn't that much older than me, but yeah, he told me that he had part of the secret police and like Interpol, and it was a global police. but he'd been watching me. And then a man that was, B. Schwartz, a real rich attorney, had bought something to do with State Farm. And I remember that, and my relatives worked over there. And there's something else, I don't know how this goes together, but the fact that he died just sort of freaked me out after telling this story on his radio show. Sort of makes you where you don't want to do radio shows, but then I guess the only way to stay aware was to make sure I did radio, because people said, you better stay public, because if you don't, everybody was dying, at that time.
Right.
They wasn't very happy about 2007 coming out. So anyway, but I'm back over at the ship, and I remember it was gray, like a pewter gray type of thing, and going on, and I felt real comfortable because this is my second time. So I have a very good feeling. I don't remember any shape shifting. I tried to say it was like a school, because in my mind, I can see kids learning star systems and stuff, and I made the mistake on his of mentioning the name Whitley Strieber. No, that was terrible. Then I was just a copycat. Don't ever mention it, which I just did, but I wasn't. It was like a little boy. Because later on in life, I get to meet him, and I get to meet Deepak Chopra. So in my mind, I had this connection of somebody like him. But I guess it's because I had seen that show they did about Whitley later on in life when I was in the Navy, and I'd seen out on the limb with Shirley MacLaine. So I think I was looking for a way to figure out who I was and if there were other people like me. But anyway, so I just know there were some kids on the ship, okay? Or it looked like it was. They looked like kids. Maybe they were little grays. Maybe they're just little kids. I don't know. But I do remember that. I remember there were some adults and some kids. So however our brains figure that. And then I just got off. In my mind's eye, I think I was gone maybe 45 minutes or so, because I know I was gone, and they started looking for us, and that's when they sent me back, because the adults, I don't know how they know them, but they know on the other side of the dune. And sure enough, they sent me back up, and the boy and the girl woke up, and we went down, and the adults were halfway up the sand dune. Where have y'all been? We were looking all over for you, blah, blah, blah. They were yelling and calling our names. You know what it is. The adults are ready to go. It's starting to get sunset. The orange turning orange. And the sky was changing color, right? Because I remember looking back and they were gone. And it's like, where'd they go? It's like, just climb up the dune and they're, whoa, they were gone. So, but anyway, I think I learned something. I think it was very important that I go. I'm like, well, why didn't they just get me like they did in Monroe? But there was something I had to do there. And my uncle working at Los Alamos. So and I don't know, because I was young. Well, we're at an hour already. We started off sort of boring with stuff, but we're getting there. So why don't you tell, because mine gets a little boring after this until, certain events happen, benchmarks on my linear timeline.
Right.
So why don't you tell yours?
I have the period where I think there was nothing happening, but I think there was things happening. But there's a period where they want you to just kind of experience life and live a normal life, quote unquote, right? But there's nothing ever normal about our lives. So let's go back in time with me. I was always aware that I was protected. They would say to me, I would have these communications telepathically. There's nobody there. Didn't see anybody in particular, but it was just like a constant communication. It's like, well, that was a close call. Well, we're always with you. We're always protecting you, and you're hidden, and you're not going to be coming out until it's time, right? And then I would question, like, oh, well, can't we do something different now? Can't we come out with this information? They'd go, no, it's not time yet. We'll tell you when it's time, and we have to keep you hidden, and we have to protect you. So that was one underlying theme. So when I was 4, I was once again out singing nonsense songs to God. I really was fascinated with the concept of God, which I realized wasn't really the biblical God. It was the ETs, right? So it was these beings that were beyond my normal 3D reality existence. And I was always aware of going on ship, being on ship. So when I was 4, I was taken on board the ship, and it was a Vimana, which is the ships that look like a city. So there was a whole city up there. And I was taken into, I had a tour of everything, and I was welcomed back. Like, this is the family. This is where I'm really from. Welcome back. And then I was escorted into this, and I don't remember the beings. It's just like that constant, they're with us and communications. And so I'm led to this theater. It looked like a movie theater. But at 4, I had never gone to a movie theater because my mother, didn't take me. That wasn't appropriate for a young child. I know people take their children now when they're very young, but back then that wasn't something, or at least that's what my mother was conditioning me, like, no, you're too young to go to the movie theater. So when I went into this theater, it was like, wow, this is a theater. And they greeted me, and they wanted me to sit in the front row in the center, so I went there, and it was a perfect distance. And there was a screen that came up, and it showed the Earth blowing up. And I was, like, shocked. But it wasn't just what was on the screen. And the whole imprint, it was like an imprinting, and I felt it emotionally and spiritually and psychologically. And so when the planet blew up, it went to the core of my being. And I heard everything, and I felt everything, and it was every sense was activated, and then some. And then the scene shifted, and there was another scene, and the planet was still whole, but there was a lot of destruction. So they showed me 12 variables on the theme that were all bad, negative reactions and outcomes, and then they showed me 12 that were positive. And I chose the third one from the end because the very last one was total utopia, and there was nothing left to do. And the second to the last was, I show you that potential and take you, like future pace you, and you would go traveling throughout that multiverse, that reality, that timeline. And I felt the next one, the end one, second one, nah. And then I came to the third one from the end, on the utopian end of the spectrum. I said, that one, let's take that one. And when I chose it, it was like, oh, you just chose for everybody. I go, what? For all of humankind? Yeah, you chose it. Okay, I didn't know what to do with that, right? I didn't quite believe it, but I went, okay. I wasn't going to argue. And just when I chose, suddenly I was back down in my my 3D world, and the sun was setting. So you have the sunset, right? You talk about the sunset. And for some reason, the sunset was so colorful, so bright. It was like, remember that Robin Williams movie, What Dreams May Come, something like that? And when he was dead, it was super enhanced colors.
Must mean something. We'll just say fade in, fade out for a movie.
Yeah, it was like super enhanced. I've never seen a sunset like this ever again, right? It was super enhanced. And then the ETs always tell their people, not always, but a lot of their people that they take on their little tours, they say, you're very important, you're very special, right? And so I'm down on the earth. I'm back in my human form. I think I was in my human form, but I was my eternal self with my awareness. So I knew who I was in the totality of existence, all the way up to my source being. So I was aware of who I was, not just Janet, but other incarnations and lifetimes or whatever, all the way up to source. So then I was returned to my narrow perspective. You're Janet, right? And I'm taking my body, and I'm putting my foot down, because when they took me, my foot was up in the air. So I'm returned to the exact position I was in when I was taken. So I put my foot down, and there's the brilliant sunset. And then I get this communication that you've come here to do something which will benefit all of humankind. And then there was this elation, like, oh, wow, I'm going to do something important. My life has meaning. I'm here with a mission. I'm here to I'm here to show up in the hero's journey. It's basically the beginning of the hero's journey. So you have the call and you go on the journey, and you're being called to do something on an archetypal level, the hero, and it's going to benefit humanity, and you're going to be one of the white hats, one of the good people. So that was instilled upon me, and I took that. I said, yes, I agree to do that. That's my mission. And then I realized, I can't tell those people because, they're not going to understand it. Those people that are raising me, those people that are my brother and sister, they'll think I'm crazy. So I had the wherewithal to not go in and tell them what was going on. And then I wanted to, I kind of absorbed that and reflected on it for a while. And then I went to my mother like the next day, and I said, Mommy, I want to go to church. I want to see God. So at that point, I started to reintegrate into my human self, and it's like, okay, I want to do that again. But now it was God. It was an extraneous person, and it wasn't, these ET people, which were part of my soul family, whatever. And so my mother said, "Oh, honey, you're only 4 years old. I can't let you. They won't let you come to Sunday school. You're too young." So there you have the too young thing, right? But you wanted to go to school, and I wanted to go to church. I wanted to go to Sunday school. I heard about it. I wanted to go to Sunday school. So then I said,
my grandmother taught my Sunday school class. So I remember
right, but I was 4, so I wasn't allowed in it until you're 5, right? You had to go to the nursery. There was the nursery, and I wasn't out of the nursery. I wanted to go to Sunday school because I'm a big girl and I'm smart, and I want to go to the Sunday school. Get me out of the nursery. Goodness, that's for babies. I'm not a baby. I'm 4 now. I've been on a spaceship, right? And so I talked to my guys because I was when she said no. And then I came back and I said, Mom, if you don't talk to the people at church, they'll let me in. So I think there's some kind of manipulation, because she goes and talks to them. He said, yeah, it's really odd they're letting you in. You're a year younger than anybody else ever. And that haunted me all through Sunday school, because everybody was jealous because I had started when I was 4, right? And there was a big argument that unfolded because I was too young, because then that involved when you joined the church. You had to complete so many years, then you got to join the church. So I was a year ahead. What's she getting to join the church at such a young age? So I ended up quitting the church because of all the bullshit. But when I was there, so of course when I went to Sunday school, God wasn't there because E.T. wasn't there, right? And then I was greatly disappointed. So there we go. There we have a common thing. Now, then I had the implants, but the call to go somewhere, that seems so familiar, like I had a call to go somewhere. But I think my call to go somewhere was this constant quest to try to, so I made my parents take me to the observatory, because there was that part like, I'm going to see this again. And then I started to sleep out in the summer. And then there were things that happened when I slept out. And I don't have all those stories. I just am aware that it was very exciting and that things happened. And some people abandoned me as a friend because it was too scary for them. And some people were drawn to me. I know that I did something with my cousin, my older cousin. I had one that was a year older and one was 2 years older. And I took that cousin on some kind of ET magical adventure. And she came back and told her mother. And her mother went to my mother. They were sisters. And her mother says, Lois is never allowed to play with Janet again. And I was crushed. But I think I somehow, I was willful like you, and I somehow got her to an ET experience. But it was right out of the house in the middle of the day. It's like I called them and they took us, and because she was like daring me I would tell her things. She'd go, oh, yeah, you're making that up. I go, okay, right, I'll show you. So somehow I showed her, but I'm blocking the details of it. But I know I did something which we would call magic, like what you did. Oh, so Cher, before we go, we've got a little bit of time, but I want to make sure we get in with your stories about when you were young, the story about when you had the superpowers and you saved your uncle's life who was going to get crushed by the car. You want to share that one?
That was at my grandmother's. But, yeah, let me, real quick, while we're still over at White Sands with me, on the way there, we stayed at a motel. I still remember the soap, the smell of the soap. I'm always looking for that, a little white bar soap. But I remember meeting a boy, and we had some kind of ESP communication. My grandmother didn't understand it, and my uncle and aunt didn't know. But my grandmother saw me peeking out the bathroom when he was getting ready to leave. There was a Boy Scout jamboree going on somewhere in New Mexico or something, and a big bus of Boy Scouts. But one of them, he and I, it was like something out of Roswell. We were supposed to meet or something, and my grandmother she always catered to me. She loved me very much. But I remember there was a little window open over the bathroom stool in the bathroom again, and she came in while my aunt and uncle were packing or something to look. And they were sort of, trying to load the car or something, but she saw me in there. I was just trying not to be seen by the people outside. And I was peeking, standing up on my tiptoes, trying to see out the window. And she's like, what are you looking at? And she said, was that boy you saw last night or something? And she looked out, and she said, do you want to go say bye to him? And I said, yeah, because she walked me out there, and I was real shy and embarrassed. So it's the first time I think I recognized a boy like a boy or something, because I was third or fourth grade, but hadn't got to White Sands yet. But for some reason, I still dream about that. It's the boy on the bus in the Boy Scout uniform, with the shorts and the tie and all that. And then later on, my father winds up being in that and going to that Boy Scout jamboree, being a Boy Scout leader and taking my brother. And they went to the New Mexico National Jamboree thing. But I don't know who that was, but it still comes up in my dreams, that boy. I don't know if I meet him later or if he was an E.T. boy, or which one out of 30 or 40 getting on the bus. But I don't know. We had some kind of weird connection. It was very strange. And we just, I remember standing and just looking in front of him. He didn't talk and I didn't talk. Little boy, he came up from the bus and, everybody getting on. And I remember a man standing there smiling, and he walked up halfway on the sidewalk it was a straight sidewalk. And then he's up on the sidewalk. It's where they put a little line and then a cement line and a cement in front of a little motel. And I go out halfway, and I look at him, and he looks at me. And we just look at each other. And I think he said bye finally after a few minutes. It was very awkward. But we did exchange something or something. And then I walked back to my grandmother, and she held my hand, and he got on the bus, and we waved. And I walked in. I was really sad. So it was a very strong connection for a third grader going into fourth. I remember he was older than me and taller than me, but we had some kind of connection. Because I think he may have been 12 and I was 9 going on 10. But all of a sudden I remember wanting to be old. So I don't know why that's important, but it was important. There was some kind of connection.
It was important. Yeah.
He had to go
and I have weird things like that too. There's such a powerful moment that here it's like 60 years later, 55 years later, and you still remember it and you never forget it. And it's a puzzle. Like, why was that so important? And then you keep dreaming it again. And I had the same thing with not a little boy, but I went to the what was it called? It was an amusement park. It wasn't Westview Park. It was Kennywood Park, which was on the other side of town. So it was a big deal going there because my parents didn't drive very much. So we would go to we went to Kennywood Park, and I'm very young, so this is in that period between like 4 and 5, somewhere in there, and I'm very young, and suddenly there's this laughing lady, was mechanical, and she would open her mouth and she would laugh and her whole body would shake and she'd go, and then her head would go down, and then her head would go back again, and so it was down again. And I started watching that thing, and then suddenly nobody could find me. So I know they have clowns and things like that, or screen memories, and they have amusement parks. And so they have these little key things around your abduction. So I know they're, it was kind of like after that, it was like a Alice in Wonderland thing, right? So I'm going towards this building with a big, like, opening, like a mouth or something. There's a giant mouth is the door, and it makes a character like a clown or something. So I'm going up to this building to go into this mouth, which was part of a building, and it was almost like a Disneyland type of thing. And so I have all this stuff going on, and then suddenly I'm back at Kennywood Park, and I'm looking at the lady that's laughing. So all kinds of stuff happened in between. And I hear the loudspeaker. If anybody's seen a little girl, please bring her to the, wherever they wanted me to be brought to. And then suddenly I was found, and then somebody took me to where they wanted me, and my parents were panicked. Same thing, like you had that. Like, where were you? Where have you been? Explain that you were. And I don't even, I've never done a hypnosis around that. I need to do hypnosis on that because they took me. So that was missing time, but I knew where I was the whole time, but I was missing for them. And I never wandered around away from them purposely. It was a setup. They were blanked out, and I was taken in the middle of the day in an amusement park with, hundreds of people around.
In the Six Flags.
You're what?
Twice. One of my daughters was missing twice at the amusement park, and we found her at we were all together, and then she wasn't there twice. It's very traumatic. She got lost from us, and it's impossible because we were holding hands and everything, but when the crowds walk by or something, but none of us could understand. I was in tears and running around, and it was a long time. It was like an hour. They finally, because we were making a big deal looking for her and everything, but she got separated. That was Stephanie, number 3 of my daughters.
Oh,
but
wow.
She got that. Yeah, so it comes in generation to generation. But let me go back to that part you asked me about. That was when I was seeing that little boy, and we went over to my Leo had taught me some special powers, and I knew I had them. So, because I'd been practicing like levitation kind of stuff, right, with my blocks and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened was when my grandmother lived at 1503 South 3rd, back in the day they would put these culverts down, these circle cement things, in the ditches everywhere in Louisiana and Monroe. Anyway, they had ditches out. Then from the street, then a ditch on each side, where she lived anyway on South 3rd, and then they'd put these cement things in the dirt over it, and you drove up. She never had an asphalt sidewalk. There was always dirt with rocks in it, and there two grass would grow in the middle of the two little things up next to her house. And anyway, the old Plymouth, they were 50s, had like a Plymouth ship on the front of it. It's old, big old round, old Plymouth. The old cars to me looked alike, but 55, maybe 56, I don't know. But I was standing in the back seat when we were little kids. Stood in the back seat. They were real bouncy.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have to have seat belts back then. So my dad was notorious for trying to move out at night and turning too quick. There were big old wheels and big old tires and big old steering wheel. But he occasionally, more than 3 times, would pull off too quick and get off the culvert, and the wheel would drop down, and so he'd have to jack it up. Well, one night, my mother's sister was working out at Old Madison, but he was a basketball player at that time, living in the next room, my grandma. So he came out to help my dad. So he did it for my dad, standing there with the kids. And the jack came undone and fell, and my dad was standing behind him and caught him. So when the jack fell down between the culvert and the wheel, because they were trying to get it up off the cement. It's a real odd thing how they had it jacked anyway. But the jack fell somehow and pinned him under it, and he fell back on my dad, between my dad's legs. So my dad was pinned under him and then the jack, and they were yelling for my mom because they would say, it's cursing him, you've got to come. And Mama was scared, and she didn't know what to do because Mama would panic sometimes. But I was in the back, and I said, Mama, I can help him. And she said, no, just stay in the car, Mama. I said, and she wouldn't move. It's like forever. So she was like, oh, what am I going to do? Because she knew Sister couldn't have my grandma. But so I said, Mama, I can do it. Let me get out. So I just opened the door and got out and walked around, went over and picked the car up. And my uncle looked at me like I was super baby. It's like a Superman thing. You know?
You were.
I mean, I picked up the car off the jack so they could slide out from under it, and he was looking at my dad like, how did she do that? Did you see what she did? She just saved my life. How did she do that? And my dad's like, I don't know. But my dad was just so glad. He didn't think. He's like, I don't know, but, come on. And so he got him up, and they, went back to get it fixed and got in the car and left, I guess, but my uncle he always looked at me really, really strange growing up with his kids and stuff. He knew that wasn't possible, but my dad didn't seem to, for some reason, my dad, I don't know, he didn't seem to be fazed by it. So maybe my dad knew something about me or knew I was different. I don't know. They always treated me unique, but my uncle did not ever get over that, But I remember having extra strength from time to time, but it was like only certain times, and I still have a grip, and my grandson has it. So sometimes you can grip something, and I don't know where it comes from. And some people say some people have that. So Stan Lee was, following me when I was writing for UFO Digest. Stan Lee, these comic books.
Right.
He was looking for super people, and that's when I realized, why was he looking and reading my stuff? And then he and I would talk. And he was looking for super people for his TV show. He was putting real people in it. But anyway, I didn't want to do it. Remember, I've always been real, don't want to do that. So I don't want to expose myself, But I don't think I have it. I think it seemed to be, after that, I went into the mind part, studying how you can influence people with your mind and stuff in teenage years. But that was before I even went to White Sands. So now we're just stuck over.
Yeah, you're pretty young, right? Yeah.
We're going to run out of time before we ever get it way up to now. I knew that was going to happen. It's a long story, for you and me both to tell, but it's going to take a few chapters.
We don't need to speed through it. Yeah, we can just do a little bit at a time. Yeah,
do a PowerPoint on it. Take 2 hours.
I think that'd be great. Yeah.
We got to find some pictures to sort of do this and make a PowerPoint for, how this. Because everybody has to compare how their stories. We all have something similar in the experiencers, and they're just now involved where they're going to let people tell them, even though they've been doing it at the Congress. But I've never been to a UFO Congress meeting or a UFO or a MUFON conference or any of those. We've never been asked to tell our stories, but now it appears from us filling out that contact form for MUFON that they're going to have with Kathy Martin and Denise Stoner here in Florida where I am, but they're way down south near Orlando, and I'm way up here in the Panhandle. I'm even on Central Time, just about 60 miles from Mobile here, Pensacola, and I'm in Gulf Breeze over the 3 Mile Bridge, but you're in Hawaii. And we both had somebody call, but I didn't have a good reaction to they call it the ERT. It's Experiencer Research Team with Denise and some guy named Mitch. And anyway, some man heads it up, and Jan Harzan make sure he gets the forms, and then they disperse them. And I've talked to Earl Grey. His name's Earl Anderson, but his stage name, being a guitarist, is Earl Grey, and he's an LPN. His daughter's an RN, but he's real sweet. He's the assistant director for California, so he's going to help us with our association and all these things because he's had experiences, and his mother worked for Howard Hughes. And Jan Harzan they'll be back to tell their stories, and we'll find out their encounter stories. But talking about personal experiences, awakening reality, disclosure of what was kept secret, we'll have to get to that towards the end as adults. But becoming intuitive counselors, and I do tarot cards, and you see dead people. So we all have skills, but Janet and I have some skills. But, nothing's superpower, nothing. It's just, it is what it is as you grow up and grow older.
It is what it is.
Telling our story and how it works in today's time and sharing all the stuff that I think is going to be a normal future, that people realize they're not just in the future 3D people like we were thought to believe when we grew up, going to regular school and going to church on Sunday, and people went to work and had jobs and retired and got a gold watch and a pension. I don't think that's going to be the way it is, but we're talking about it, what the future is going to be now that we know we're getting the word out that alien civilizations exist. And we are alien contact experiencers all our lives. And how they compare. And, there's other people telling their stories now, all these podcast people telling their stories. And maybe MUFON will be able to get a lot of them. We filled out the questionnaire, but it would lean more towards alien abductees and being more of a victim. I didn't care for the questioning, but I only got 10 out of 30, I think. Maybe 12 out of 30, I don't know. But Earl Grey said they're stacked questioningly. They don't want people that answer all of them, yes. So I don't know what they're doing with that. But I don't want to be stuck like a pincushion. I don't want to be a lab rat. But I don't mind helping people if they're telling their true story and trying to figure out their spiritual path and the journey that we're all on with beings that come and go. And I was always told I was special and I was chosen. That's part of my thing. Even the governor of Louisiana. I always said that people would say, "Oh, you're going to do great things someday," and you believe it when you're a kid,
Yeah,
you really do.
Well, they're hoping to inspire you to do something. So, there's good intentions. There's nothing wrong with that. It definitely, it's hard being a kid. You need to develop your self-sense of who you are, separate from your parents, separate from everybody else, so you become an individual. So, well, we've got a little bit less than a half an hour. We knew we weren't going to get out of our childhood, and I think that's fine. It's good to slow this down. I mean, we've got a lot of episodes. We didn't even get into the teen years. I heard your story, but every time we say it, we get a little bit more details. So I wanted to go back and see what else. So we've got the story, White Sands. Now let's see. Let's do some out-of-body near-death instances. So you went out of your body when you had hepatitis, and you were what, 8 or something? What happened when you died?
Well, I was over my body, but I was watching the angels. They were in the corner.
And what were they doing?
Talking to me. They were up
What did they say?
Corner. That I was going to be okay.
So you're going to be okay.
I would feel good. Yeah.
And what was your emotional state when you were watching yourself? Because I'm watching a show called Saving Hope, and it's about a hospital, I think a Canadian hospital, and it's probably reruns and old for most people, but I'm watching Saving Grace or Saving Hope, I think it is. And the doctor had been in a coma, so he was able to see ghosts. He was able to see people when they were out of body, like you. So you were out of body, and yet you were interacting with these. And I've had that same experience of being out of body. To the people that are looking at me, I look like I'm dead or in a comatose type state, but then there's all this stuff going on. So So you were talking to some angels. What did they look like?
People, I think they were. I don't remember now because I know they didn't have wings, and they were. It seemed like a man and a woman, but I could be wrong now, because through the years, I just know the personages, and making me feel calm and not worry or anything that I was going to, go on. And they remind me later when I'm at a swimming pool and I almost drowned, but I knew because I'd talked to them that I wasn't going to drown. And one of those people, whoever they are, extraterrestrials, pulled me up out of the pool in Monroe. It was really deep. Sometimes they put extra water. And I was little, and I'd go out to the fountain because my grandma had taught me to swim as a child. She was a very good swimmer, Esther Williams. Her name was Esther. So, and I could see her in her fantasies with her cap and doing all kind of things I saw the women do with their feet. She was some kind of swimming lady like they had in Florida. I don't know what they called them, but she had done a little traveling. But she was very beautiful and red hair. But she would put her cap on and show me moves and raise her legs and point her toes and go under, and she was really good. She was very acrobatic. But so she taught me how to swim. But one day the water was really high, and I went out and I got exhausted. I was just a little kid, and I couldn't make it this time. And I'd done it twice. I'd done it one time before, and a girl had pulled me up. So I thought she pulled me up again, but it wasn't her because I realized I was like still 5 feet away from the water, and there was a little ledge you could get out and stand on a little lip they had at the fountain. It was a really huge fountain, and but she wasn't there, and so my mind had created that she had pulled me up again, but she was, and I asked her, she came out and she said, "You were drowning. I couldn't get to you this time," and I said, "I know, but I was like 5 feet away," but it was something like, but she was like, "Yeah," because the water would go up and come down and spray. But I was really drowning. I knew it, and I gave up. So, you're exhausted, and you're like, blub, 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 and you just sink. But I had my hand up. I know that one of those angels pulled me up in the water and dragged me over. I don't know how they do it, but I do know that it's possible. So I believe in angels. I don't know how to explain it, but I do know that feeling. I can't say what they look like, but it's a feeling and a saving grace. It's a pull you. You're got a foot or two of water over you with your hand up because my hand was completely covered, and they pulled me up and pulled me over. So I didn't have to swim. They just pulled me up and pulled me up, and there was nobody there. So I do that, and that same feeling was when I used to drive a truck sometimes at night. And I'd be by myself. I used to drive a big truck when I was older, and I'd get that feeling. And I could sometimes wake up at the wheel and feel like they were hands. So I don't know who these invisible people are, but I believe that they exist. And I don't know what to call them, so I always call them angels. E.T.
Right, right. Yeah, we could do a whole thing on angels and when they interact with us. And so, yeah, I've had that same thing. And then there's an energy when you come back from dealing with them. It's like a different vibratory frequency, right? So we're dealing with angels.
Yeah, you're almost like you're not sure if you're awake or sleeping or a dream. It puts you in some kind of feeling of a stasis, but not really. But you recognize you almost drowned. For some reason, your human container knows it was in jeopardy. That part of you, your physical alien or physical non-alien, but your spirit or your soul. I'm not sure how this works. It seems to me the power of three is your physical container, which is your body. Then there's the observer or mind that you're conscious with, and then your oversoul or your superconscious, which is connected to Source or God. Like that's the way we've been trained in America, going to school and going to church and then learning about God, there's a connection. So when I work with these Allied Command off planet as an older person in my 30s and 40s, I met Tom. I would say there's the physical me, and then I would call my higher self Tara. That was the one that did the readings and helped people to know things, the intuitive precog. And then I still have the observer that can observe the container. I guess we're multidimensionals because I have several me's that I'm aware of. And everybody can know how many, but the 12 dimensions of self, and 13 is supposed to be your God source or your Jesus self, 13, because he always had 12 apostles to teach. He was the greatest metaphysician. And then when we do Atlantis and we do Stargate, we have to have 12 egos or tarot cards or archetypes in a circle like a clock. So there's something to the 13 being the all number one commander metaphysician when you're working in the ancient mystery schools. And you know how they do the 33 Masons, 33. So there's numerology involved in all this stuff. And I've tried to study and read books all my life about this stuff. But this is going to take a long time to make this work for alien contact experiencers. But we do need to break it down and use ourselves, us observing ourselves and our own personal stories, from the heart and the soul, mind, body, spirit. Right. And what does that mean to people? Because we're just now talking. We've always had the occult and the esoteric, and the exoteric, EXO and the ESO. And I have the Ace Metaphysical Institute, and I have Ascension Psychic Awakening classes. And you asked me about ESP classes. I didn't know about what you're talking about with that, but apparently some part of me let somebody know, my higher self or something. But you know how Shirley MacLaine did Out on a Limb and tried to write her book, and everybody thought she was crazy and nuts. It took forever.
She did what? Oh, Out on a Limb, yeah. Well, I loved that book. I would be on ski vacation, like go skiing with my friends and stuff, and then there were just times where, you just curl up in front of the fireplace with a good book, and I read all Shirley MacLaine's books, and they were just wonderful. She was a great writer, and she gave us permission.
To be different. Well, she had a channeler, and so channeling was
she
a big
talked about
thing.
her channeler.
Yeah, I broke it down and teach it, but it was a big thing in the 70s and 80s, and then when I was in the Navy. So I've got a book on all that in my, all the different ways to teach that. Still have some ways to help people learn to do that. But channeling wasn't for everybody, and then we started wondering who we were channeling, and it teaches this in this book. I have an explanation for all that, but a lot of people, it's something we learned in our spiritual path. And some people did, and some have soul purpose, and some don't. Some have past lives, some don't, some are new. So there's a whole study and research that developed, and then Dolores Cannon came along and gave permission. Shirley MacLaine in one way, and most people don't know she has her own way of. They changed the name of what she was teaching to take people back in hypnotic regression and talk to their higher selves and old souls and star people. You can people can look at Dolores Cannon and see her work. And you and I are starting another level. We're going to the next level, as you say.
Right.
So I think we're going to take it further.
So let's do one more thing and then call it a day. It's 43 before the hour, and so let's see. Let's go down. What else happened before you were the age of 10? Do you have anything else you want to share that happened before you were the age of 10?
Can't remember anything. How about you?
Well, I had an episode where I was trying to integrate into being like this human. That's the best way to describe it. It's like I had this awareness that I was an eternal being, and part of it was being on board the ship, but I wasn't quite fitting in. And I think you said something similar, that you were really advanced. So I remember I was advanced and I was talking. Oh, I was levitating. Very young. I was still in the crib and I was levitating, and it used to freak my mother out. And one time, and I would get out of the crib and I'd fly around the room, and then I would pop back down in the bed in my crib, and I would start to giggle. And it was so much fun. and then my mother heard me giggling, and I was in the other room, and she was in the kitchen, and we had a washer and dryer in there, and so she liked to hang up the clothes in the kitchen, let them dry, because she was always about saving energy, because she was paranoid about money, because she was a child of the Depression. So anyway, she popped her head back into the dining room where she had put my crib, because it was very cold in Pennsylvania in the winters. And she saw what happened, and she absolutely freaked out. So I never did it again, but I never forgot. And then I was at the Prophets Conference in the 90s, or to the early part of the 20th, I think it was probably the late 90s, early 21st century, like around 2000, 2001, that type of thing. And there was a young man that took the mic, was asking a question, and he explained how he was in a orphanage as a young boy, and it was Catholic orphanage, and that he used to fly around, and the nuns would just get angry, and they'd try to pull him down, and they would spank him. You can't be doing that, and till he freaked out. So there you got your Catholics were saying, she's Teresa's talking to angels, right? So there was some kind of Catholic intervention there where they're trying to keep you, well, they're looking for miracles, right? Or they want to keep you in the matrix, keep you confined.
Yeah, that's where I had, the second grade. So, the nuns had me talk to a guy, and they were going to report me to the Vatican and all that. It was going to be a miracle. And so what happened is my grandmother and mother talked to me for 2 or 3 days about this. It's a big deal. But they told me if I really didn't want to, my mother and grandmother's schemes, they were scared that they would take me away. So it must have been a really big deal for me to live in a miracle and all that. They must have wrote it up and sent it to the Vatican or something. But they told me when I talked to them, if I really didn't want to go, to tell them they had wings. So I said, that's not going to work. They said, yeah, it would work. So we all three schemed together to tell them that, they had wings. So they knew that it wasn't real. And it worked. So they left me alone. So that was good. So, because they didn't have wings. So, and I don't know, but whatever I said and whatever they, told me and stuff, they wanted, and they wrote it down. So I may have had a message or something back then, but I don't remember it now. So I still remember when you look in the corner, I can still look up, like I'm looking in the corner right now, and I almost want to visualize them and make them appear, So that is interesting, though. There's always the Catholic thing come up throughout history with seeing children and giving children messages. But, I always felt special. And I do have a lot of flying into this day, especially at night in my dreams. And, I do know, I don't know how to say it yet, but I know what I believe and what I know that I do. And I want to be able to address it to the public that will hear this, and those that may or may not have similar experiences as alien contact or extraterrestrial angelic contact, however you want to say it, is the fact that you don't get lost in the words, but the energy and things that have happened that have made impressions on your memories. And then I want to get on later on with, the government involvement and being chosen as a teenager and, working with the government.
Well, we'll do this again.
All that.
Yeah, we'll go deeper into the story. Maybe we can cover some later years. So, I did a lot of astral traveling as well. But let me give you the punchline to the story of the levitating. So then this young man that was asking the question, telling about his involvement when he was in the Catholic orphanage, he said, well, if anybody's had any experiences levitating, meet me in the back under that sign. So then there was a break. It was a conference and there was a break. And I told Sasha, wow, I remembered something. So it was like when he said that, people remembered things. And I went in the back and I thought, oh, it'll just be me and this guy, right? There were 12 people back there. And we all started sharing our stories. It was like, when he said that, it was like, yeah, I remember levitating. And we had just enough time to go, real quickly about share your story. And then we had to, leave because the next speaker was coming on or something. But anyway, so that was that. Let's wrap this up because I've got to go here in a few minutes. So we're going to do this again, in about a month? We're going to have other guests between now and then. If anybody wants to come on Aquarian Radio and TJ Morris ET Radio on a Thursday, and you've got something to share, please send me an email at aquarianradio@gmail.com. Now, TJ does other shows. I do a couple other shows on Revolution Radio. So the Aquarian Radio, TJ Morris ET Radio, we syndicate this. That's on Thursdays, and we're doing it, 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Mountain, 4 p.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Hawaii time. And we're going about 2 hours, and you can come on for either 1 hour or 2 hours. So if you send me an email, aquarianradio@gmail, I'll get you scheduled there. Now, and then the Revolution Radio shows I do are on Sunday and Tuesdays, 8 to 10 with Dr. Sasha Lessin. Now, TJ, what are your other shows that you do? What days of the week have you decided?
Tomorrow night's Allied Command with Ken Johnston, and he brought on Don Garrett last week. That was a pilot for the Air Force, and they worked on the testing everything before the O-rings happened, where Grizzly Chastman White got killed in one of the spacecraft. And we're saying alien civilizations exist, but Don Garrett's a Baptist preacher, but he was an Air Force officer, and he went to West Point. He was chosen by the Army, the last guy before they stopped letting the Army guys go to West Point or something like that. But you can listen to that show last Friday. In this Friday, I don't know who we're having. He was talking to Laura Eisenhower, but I don't know if he booked her for Friday. But we're going to be talking about the Allied Command tomorrow night. And I don't know. We've got various people that have agreed to help us with the Allied Command. And we're going to have the NASA astronauts and the pilots and the engineers and all of those, and then talk about the world real Supreme Allied Command, and then the one off planet. And your husband, Dr. Alexander Sasha Lessin, has been helping with past life regression. And Ken wants to somehow, he's calling it the Secret Space Program, I think because of Corey Goode. But remember, Richard called it Breakaway Civilization. Then there was, 2 or 3 years ago, a Secret Space website and an event in Texas. And then Corey Goode, I don't know if he just called it that or everybody latched onto it, but Ken likes it, and I've got UFOsecretspace.com, but I've also got the alliedcommand.org. So we're going to do shows.
Like alliedcommand.org.
But Norio Hawakawa, Norio just came on this little
Norio's
spot.
Coming on, just to give everybody a little preview. Norio Horikawa, I don't know how you pronounce it. Hayakawa.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I misspelled that. Anyway, I'll get his information. I'll get it up. He's coming on the 7th. He's coming on the 7th of March. He's coming on for 1 hour. And he's coming on at 7 p.m. Eastern for 1 hour. So we're doing 2-hour shows, but some people want to come on for 1 hour. So just to give you a little preview, on the 14th of February, we have Merrill Funkhauser, and he's the one that did Wipeout, but he does all this wonderful music, and he's an ET contact the experiencer, and he knows all about these. A lot of the musicians got inspiration from their extraterrestrial encounters. So he's going to be on. And then on the 21st, we have Mike Panicello, and he's with MUFON, and I forget what state. I've got to fill that out. So anyway, I am looking for someone on the 5th of February. I'm opening, and I kind of, send me your info if anybody out there wants to come on, or if you have any recommendations. I'm trying to get new people. I've done a lot of people, and I'm looking for the newbies. I like some newbie people. So if there, and you have had some kind of experiences, or you've written a book on ET, UFO, that type of thing, paranormal thing, please give me a shout out and call, or not call, but email. I'm not good at phone calls. Email.
Hey, what about the girl? Suzanne Ross said she'd come on.
I haven't heard back. I'm sending out emails. People are looking at their calendars and getting back at me. So anyway, I will get all that coordinated. So send it to me, and I will get it on the calendar, and I'll let TJ know. And then you can. How can people contact you, TJ, if they want to come on one of your shows?
My email is the best, but you can call me. tjmorrisagency@gmail.com.
Yeah, so write to email. TJ's hard to reach on the phone. I'm just letting you know. That's the tjmorrisagency@gmail.com for TJ, and aquarianradio@gmail.com for Janet. And, and we could probably put you on several shows. We like to space people out. If you come on a show 1 month, we might, have you back again like the next month. We want to give everybody an opportunity. There's so many people out there that are waking up, becoming conscious, writing books, creating blogs and YouTubes and movies and videos. And so this is part of the grand awakening, and it's happening now. And it's just about time, because we don't do something soon, as you can tell by the up to minus 50 degrees, in some places even more, the temperature. Something is happening on our planet. So we need to wake up, become conscious, and take some affirmative action to save. I guess the world will be fine without us, but it's not good to have these extremes. I like the earth. I love the earth, and I've been a part of this consciousness movement since I literally was born, probably before I was born, like TJ. So, TJ, I'm going to pass you the final talking stick so you can take us on out. It's 57 before the hour, and I have to leave out on the hour because I have to do something else. Take it away, TJ, with your final words.
All right. Well, tomorrow is Ken Johnston Sr. He was a Grumman astronaut, and he's very excited about working with us, with the ACO Association. And he and me and Janet met in 2017, and we're just getting geared up. We have a lot of groups on Facebook, social media, and we're all going to be telling our stories. And I guess the most famous people are David Wilcott, Corey Good, and Emery Smith, for people knowing because of Gaia TV. And we've been doing this since 2012. And I think Gaia came in after we did, actually. I don't know for sure, but I don't even know who owns Gaia right now. But anyway, we're not Gaia, but we're not ancient aliens either. Although in the future, we're going to talk about people we meet off planet in past lives and back here, and why the government was so interested in the Stargate program and Russell Targ and other people. And the CIA using the Stargate and learning to help people, and how we all have this ability with our intuitive selves. And there's a lot of great movies out there. Philip K. Dick, Minority Report, and The Adjustment Bureau, and Total Recall. And we have a lot of friends. And Roger Smith and his wife is having, in March in Albuquerque, a universal conscious type. But Janet, we used to always talk about them. So we'll, Richard Smith.
Richard Smith. Yeah, you got Roger. It's Richard.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll let Ken talk about it tomorrow because he's going. He wants us to go. But me and Janet are really about getting all these websites and all these groups organized, as we're the admins, and so free social media, and now here in our website. So it's going to take us some time, but if you'd like to help us, please call us or email us, and we'll try to work with you and use your speechcraft in communication. Thank you, Janet. We're out of time, so let's wrap this up.
Thank you.
And see you next
Aloha,
Thursday.
love and blessings. Aloha, love and blessings. We'll see you again next week. Same time, same bat channel.
Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye. Aloha, bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you. Good night.
Let's say you just bought a house. Bad news is, you're one step closer to becoming your parents. You'll proudly mow the lawn, ask if anybody noticed you mowed the lawn, tell people to stay off the lawn, compare it to your neighbor's lawn, and complain about having to mow the lawn again. Good news is, it's easy to bundle home and auto through Progressive and save on your car insurance, which, of course, will go right into the lawn. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and other insurers. Discount not available in all states or situations.
Pros in the know start with Lowe's, because at Lowe's, pros save big on bulk purchases of supplies and materials they use most, like 30% off select in-stock fiberglass insulation. While you're at it, you can also get up to 15% off select in-stock drywall accessories, and backer board when you buy in bulk. And our dedicated pro team is here to help you get it all loaded up and back to the job site. So, pro, now that you know, start with Lowe's. Minimum purchase required. Selection varies by location. U.S. only.